Hey there, listeners. Welcome to Hines on Air, your weekly dose of inspiration, motivation, and real-life entrepreneurial stories. I'm Matt Hines, your host, and I'm excited to have you join me on this journey. From building a successful law firm to venturing into other industries like real estate and social media, I've experienced both the triumphs and the challenges that come with entrepreneurship. I've learned firsthand the importance of resilience, adaptability, and a relentless pursuit of excellence. On Hines on Air, we're diving deep into the world of business, law, and personal growth. Join me as I chat with incredible guests who have faced adversity, defied expectations, and achieved extraordinary success. We'll discuss their strategies, their mindset, and the lessons they've learned along the way. Whether you're an aspiring entrepreneur, a seasoned business owner, or simply someone looking for a little inspiration, Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories. Let's get started.
We want to thank our sponsor, Bravos Leadership. Bravos Leadership is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and other business-minded people grow their companies and achieve their goals in life. They're having a major event on June 21st that's going to have some of the best business minds on the planet, including Grant Cardone. So get your tickets today.
Hey everybody, Matthew Hines back with another Hines on Air. We've got a powerhouse in the studio with us today. So the goal today is to talk about entrepreneurship. And there's no better place or person to learn this from than the gentleman we have on board with us. So he's done it all, led major groups. He is the author of An Insider's Guide to Business, Secrets from an Entrepreneur's Playbook. I looked it up on Amazon. It looks like a fantastic book. I did not get to read too much into it, but man, the topics and all are very intriguing. He's got two franchises, right, Roger? Or you've been over? Okay.
I've co-founded two. I just recently, within a couple of months ago, sold one of those to another platform of brands.
Okay.
But I still am the owner and CEO of the second.
Okay. All right. But nonetheless, we're talking to a gentleman who has been there, done that, and done that very successfully. So I'm very excited to get information and advice from Mr. Roger. So Roger, thank you for joining us, my friend.
Oh my gosh, my pleasure. And we can get into it because I didn't start my entrepreneurial journey till I was 47. So I've been doing this for 8 or 9 years now, but I've lived the life probably of many of your listeners where, you start in corporate America, but then you really have that dream to go on to other things. And so we can talk through whatever you want to talk through.
Well, it's good to hear you say that because, all right, I'm 47 actually. And sometimes I think I've missed some opportunities, but it's good to hear that you started when you did and you're as successful as you are. That's cool.
Yeah. You may feel like you've missed some opportunities, and I certainly feel that way. But if we really examine it, I believe that the wisdom that we accrue and the experiences that we go through, even in corporate America, you bring all those skill sets, all those learnings, all those advantages really to your entrepreneurial journey, whereas somebody that's starting out as an entrepreneur at 20 or 22 years of age, yes, they have a lot more runway, but they don't have the wisdom that you and I have acquired, over the time and the scar tissue to prove it. So I think there's advantages and disadvantages, depending when you start.
Yeah, no, okay. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, I started mine straight out of school, so I was one of those who got kicked in the teeth several times before I actually learned anything.
Well, I've been kicked in the teeth too.
Yeah,
at an older age. Yeah.
So you were corporate America up until 47. Who can you tell us who you worked with?
Yeah. I worked for 4 or 5 different pharmaceutical companies. So I started my career right out of undergrad school with Eli Lilly, one of the bigger pharmaceutical companies.
Yep.
And ended up working for them. Then later a Belgium-based company that had a stateside presence. Then a startup called Seprecor, was there 9 years. Ended up managing, I think I had a spanning control of like 500 people at one time as a national sales director. They got sold to a Japanese firm after I left. And then I went to work for private equity, and I worked for private equity in running one of their facilities that they owned, a pharmaceutical facility, for 9 years. And then became a CEO. We sold that. And then I became a COO for another family office, basically private equity, that owned a different modality, solid oral dosage form plant that was a contract manufacturer. Did that for about 2.5 years, but just realized when I was in that last role as a COO that I'd really climbed the ladder from a sales rep to the COO. And I had done what I came there to do, so to speak, in that industry. I was making a lot of money, had a lot of perks, a lot of benefits, stock options, all the stuff, but it was just unfulfilling on every level at a certain point. And people will tell you that, money doesn't buy happiness. That's true. It'll get you right up to the front door, but you got to be fully fulfilled and happy in your heart to enjoy any of that money.
Yeah.
And I just found that I wasn't fulfilling what I believe my purpose and mission is. And that's to pursue my own thing and help others get into business, help others grow their businesses and employ people, create jobs. That's been a great feeling for me.
Nice. That's fun. All right, listen, This is a complete digression, but you've sort of opened the door. Because I'm one of the skeptics of the pharmaceutical industry. And I'd love to, but you sound like a good, honest person. What's your view of that? And I'm not asking you to get uncomfortable or anything like that, but I'm a cynic. I believe in medicine, and I believe in treatment, and I believe in all the things we've accomplished through research in medicine. I also see a very strong push to overdrug populations and stuff. Do you have a viewpoint on that, or?
I do. I will tell you, I'm pretty confident in my opinions on this because I lived it for so long. The American healthcare system is broken, full stop.
Okay.
And it's broken at every level with every service, every position, a doctor, a nurse, the hospital system, the drug companies. It's just a broken system in every way. And it is built, it's a multi-trillion-dollar per year industry, and it is built to generate and churn money, as most industries are, but it's not an altruistic, thing. I will tell you that big pharma gets a bad rap and everybody wants the dog on them until your grandmother is sick and needs a pill that they sell that will actually extend her life. Well, then all of a sudden they're not so bad, right?
That makes sense.
It's a fine line, but I will say that yes, we're over medicated. There's always a pill for everything, when the real foundation of health and wellness is moving your body, exercising every single day. That doesn't mean you have to kill yourself in the gym every day, but you have to move your body and exercise every single day. That's the way we were designed, back millions of years.
Right.
We didn't sit around. We went out and hunted for food or hunted animals. We were moving.
Right.
And then nutrition right below that. We weren't eating processed foods. We were eating things we killed or we took off a tree or out of the ground. And then just a time in the sun, which is not bad for you. Now, an hour and a half in the sun with no sunscreen, that's not good for you. But you need sun. You need to put your feet on the real earth, on ground, not concrete, like your bare feet. There's just so many primal, simple, free things or low-cost things that we could do that would prevent. I'm making this up. Probably prevent 90% of illness.
No, I'm with you. 90 is a good number. It's not an exaggeration.
But the industry doesn't make a lot of money if everybody's.
That's right.
And this includes doctors. Your family doctor, who's probably a nice guy or a nice gal, but if you're healthy, they don't make any money. And on that $400,000 education was for nothing. So the whole system, including big pharma, is set up to churn the dollar.
Right.
And there is not going to be a quick fix for that. Not in our lifetimes by any means. It's there's too much. Follow the money. And whenever there's an issue politically, a war starting, whatever, that, man, just follow the dollar all the way back up the line, and you'll see why that decision was made.
Yeah, that's right. I actually would love to take that and explore it in depth with you, because you and I are on the same page, but that's okay. I don't want to completely redirect. Maybe we could do it on another episode, but everything you said, I'm in complete agreement with. I think we changed diet, we changed exercise, we are changing that alone. We've changed the majority of our illnesses.
Yeah. I'll just, one last thing on that is,
sure.
I've got a really good friend. I'm a huge live music fan. And so I was going to a concert with a friend of mine, who's also a physician, and he's a longevity physician. So he works with people and helps them balance their hormones and right supplementation. And if weight loss is an issue, helps them through that. But I asked him, I said, hey man, we were literally having a beer full of things, which is not good for you, but we're having a beer before the show. And I said, hey man, I'm almost 55. Like, what supplements do I need to be taking? Like, what, if there's just a core of 5 or 10 or what is that? And he said, I'll give you a recommendation. He goes, but it is nutrition, it is exercise, and then a ginormous gap down the lane, so to speak, and then supplementation. He goes, but these two things are they make all the difference in the world. So here's a guy who makes his living by recommending supplementation, hormone, bioidentical hormone replacements, all of that stuff. And out of his own mouth to his friend, he's like, diet, exercise, nutrition, exercise. And then a distant third is supplementation or bioidentical hormones or whatever it may be. But
kidding.
It was really refreshing to hear that from a doctor who, as a friend was just telling me, yeah, dude, that stuff's great, but until you get these optimized, you got that's first and foremost, second, third, fourth, fifth, get those two optimized.
And when you say nutrition, you mean eating healthy. Is that?
This is the simplest way. I have and we can talk about this in a second, but I co-founded a national fitness franchise when I left corporate America. Woke up on a Monday. I had a nice 4-week transition plan to make sure that I had successor as a COO. That's you got to make sure you do that, finish impeccably, do that well. But I finished on a Friday. I woke up on a Monday with no health insurance, no dental insurance, no salary, no stock options, no car allowance, nothing as an entrepreneur. And I left the pharma business and went into the fitness business. And we also had a strong nutritional counseling component of our franchise. And, I've just seen the positive benefits of eating whole foods. And when our members would come in, or I'm helping educate our franchisees, I simply say, people need to eat something that either had a face, had parents, swam in the ocean, grew in a tree, or grew in the ground. If you do that and you eliminate the 5 middlemen in our supply chain and try to get it straight from the farm, which is not easy, and I don't do that, but the closer you can get to the farm, or closer you can get to the lake, or closer you can get to the tree or the animal, the more healthy that is. That's the way that, without medicines. Remember, we didn't have penicillin. We didn't have all these things that could keep us alive longer. We had leeches, and yet people lived very healthy lives. Now, granted, the life expectancy was shorter, and there's reasons for that. But I just read Benjamin Franklin's biography, and he lived to like 84, 85 or something back in the 1700s. And I'm super passionate about people at least admitting, hey, if you want to eat junk food, I had pizza on Friday night with my wife. We had a ball. It was great. Pizza and beer.
That's right. It is fun.
Yeah, it was wonderful. We watched a movie. It was a great evening.
Yeah.
But as I ate those slices of pizza, I knew that's a bad decision. That's okay. But I acknowledged that this isn't real food, and I'm not serving my body, but I am relaxing, having a great time with my wife, watching a movie, and having fun. But if I did that every single day, every single night, I'm going to pay a price for that.
Right.
And too many people I don't know if they're oblivious or they just don't want to admit it, but if it comes in a package, a shiny box, if it's sold in the middle of the grocery store and not the perimeter, it's garbage. It's just garbage. And you have to feed a nation. There's this is a whole different topic, but you have to feed a nation. So I get the scale that we have to produce food at. I get the cost we have to produce food at, but it is out of hand when 70 to 75% of our population is overweight or obese. And now close to half of our children are overweight or obese.
Yeah.
It's an epidemic.
Yeah, it is. I'm hoping RFK Jr. will do something. I do too. I think that's one of the greatest things that's ever happened in America. And I'm hoping, I'm sure it's tough with the number of people you have to convince to make big change, but it does seem like I heard him testify before Congress the other day, and he is fighting the good fight.
He doesn't back down. Yeah. Again, I don't know if I agree with everything he agrees with, but I agree with what he's trying to do.
Yeah,
and that's
right.
Let's get behind. That's right. The whole thing. You don't have to agree with everything. Just get behind the people that are trying to make real change in life.
There you go. I agree. Okay, my friend. So, I looked your book up on Amazon, and there were a few bullet points that I thought were interesting. The first one says action steps to see immediate growth. And that got my attention. All of these are very interesting subjects. What are some action steps to get immediate growth for if you're starting a company, you're wanting success, you're struggling? I know there's so many angles to take this from, and it depends on so many different variables, but what would you tell somebody?
Let me, I'll try to add some value for your listeners. Let me first say this book, An Insider's Guide to Business, Secrets from an Entrepreneur's Playbook, I wrote because I've helped so many people get into business through the franchises that I've co-founded, and they're both health and wellness franchises. One's fitness, one's recovery, like infrared sauna, red light therapy, and whatnot. And we have over 100 locations between the two brands. I have just seen so many. Corporate America showed it to me, but there's a lot of lessons and stories from corporate America in my book, but it's the stories that I've seen and I've lived. And I try to teach a principle, a business principle, in very layman's terms by sharing a quick story, that of a trial or tribulation that I've been through. Usually I share something where I got kicked in the teeth, and here's why, and here's how that could have been avoided. And so don't make the same mistake. And here's the business lesson, how you can apply it. And again, start where I stopped, and you go forward. So the book is 180 pages or so, written by me, no chat GPT, no ghostwriting, like me on my laptop, 46,000 words. That was the easy part. Relatively, it was the editing. I did 7 full cover to cover edits, meaning I had 4 people, family and friends who helped me, 4 people, and they would read it cover to cover and then send back markups. Well, this doesn't quite make sense, or this is a little confusing, or well, you should really expand upon this. And did that 7 times. That was a lot of work.
Wow.
But really tried to make it as simple as possible. Somebody, one guy bought it and read it and shared a comment. He's like, "Hey man, I don't mean to disrespect you, but it was a really easy read." I'm like, "It's supposed to be. I made it that way. I made it as easy as possible, as simple, so that the principles would stick, especially through storytelling, so that people can put it into action." So, and the last thing I will say about the book, An Insider's Guide to Business, is all the proceeds, besides what Amazon takes, every dollar, and I don't mean proceed like, after I pay myself. No, every red cent that this book has ever generated that Amazon didn't take goes to a charity, and forever will, called To Write Love in Her Arms. And it's a mental health charity that helps prevent suicide and also self-harm. A lot of people who don't commit suicide do some terrible things to themselves and because they're in such pain. And so To Write Love on Her Arms, kind of a weird name for a charity, but that's the name of the charity that is Rockbox's national partner. And I've just dedicated every dollar this book ever has made or will make. And I just donate it directly to the charity. So if anybody, listeners, are buying, buy the book off Amazon, just know that you're supporting a great cause. And I assure you, you're going to get your $15 worth, like 1,000-fold. So to answer your first question of, what are some action steps? Well, the first action step is you have to take action. And so many people, I start off the book and tell a story. Some people have heard this, but there are 4 frogs on a log. One frog decides to jump off. Well, how many frogs remain on the log? Almost without incident, people answer 3. I'm like, no, 4, because deciding is not taking action. And so many people decide they're going to start a business, but they don't. Or they decide they're going to get serious about marketing in their business, and they don't. They decide they're going to make that first hire, but they don't. Deciding is not taking action. Taking action is taking action. And jumping, you have to jump off that log. That frog has to jump. If you said there's 4 frogs in a log and one jumped off, how many frogs remain? 3, because he took action. He jumped. But we get paralyzed by fear, and that's very normal. But instead of being curious and grateful, we get fearful and angry and confused, and we don't make a decision versus, okay, yeah, I'm going to get kicked in the teeth, like you and I both said.
Yep.
I know that. And I'm going to read books like this one, and I'm going to read other books, and there's 1,000 resources and YouTube videos and, postgraduate school and all that kind of stuff so that I can be best prepared. But I am going to get kicked in the teeth. There's going to be pain involved. And once you accept that, the journey, there's more joy in the journey, because when you do get kicked, you're like, oh, I knew this was coming. Still doesn't feel good, but I knew this was coming. And I know I can get through it.
Right.
Because he wrote about it, you talked about it and all that. So I would say, I don't say this to sound blasé, but the first action in growing your business is to take action. Quit analyzing, quit meeting as a team, quit researching, get 80% of the way there and then go, because speed wins in business. Speed wins. You don't have to be best, but if you're first, you have a huge advantage.
We want to thank our sponsor, Bravos Leadership. Bravos Leadership is dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and other business-minded people grow their companies and achieve their goals in life. They're having a major event on June 21st that's going to have some of the best business minds on the planet, including Grant Cardone. So get your tickets today.
Yeah. It's funny. We interviewed another gentleman, successful like you, and I said the same question to him. What do you think's first? And you don't ever know what they're going to say. Marketing. Yeah. Hit marketing hard, or study sales, or whatever. Hire the right people. There's so many good advice out there, but his answer was the same.
Yeah.
Get into action. Get busy. And I would agree too. That's what I've learned through the years. So many people think about it and they want to call this person and see what they think. And so they're waiting on that response. And then then I'm going to go ask this, like, just get busy. Do something. Just make a mistake.
Go.
Yeah.
Too many people die, too many great ideas. They die in the vine because people have too much fear, and that's okay. And if entrepreneurship isn't for you, and I would argue it's not for probably 90 to 95% of people, because it's just, there's a reason why most people are W-2 employees, because it is probably the best path for the majority of people. Entrepreneurship is incredibly hard. It's harder than you think it's going to be.
Yeah.
You can do it, but it is going to be harder. It was harder than I thought it was going to be. And you have to have a little bit, I write about this in the book, you have to have a little bit of narcissism in you to be an entrepreneur, because what you're saying is, yeah, that company does it okay, but I know I can do it better. I'm so confident that I'm better and I will be better at this. I'm going to bet my own money on it, which is great. Like, that's not bad narcissism. That's just the ultimate confidence. And you have to believe, you're a little bit better than everybody else, or you wouldn't be doing this. But, a lot of people aren't comfortable with that risk and with the fear. And if they're not, I would say, don't do it. Don't save yourself some money and a whole lot of heartache. But if you are grappling with it and you can't let go of it, then take action and just do it. The worst that happens is you fail. You may lose some money. You may lose a lot of money. But wherever you're at currently in life, there's very few people that couldn't get back to right where they're at today. Like, you're trying to go to this next step. And I just went through this whole NLP, neuro-linguistic programming course and seminars and stuff I went to. And, I said, look, here's where I'm at. And I'm trying to get to here, but I'm struggling and I'm kind of stuck. And this guy, guru, whatever you want to call him, he's like, of course you are, because everyone is telling you you're successful. You've done great. You knocked it out of the park. So where's the motivation then to risk it and risk the social status of failing and going backwards? Because that's what you fear. It's not even really the loss of the money. It's the fear of the social status. And, oh my God, I worked so hard to get this. I don't want to lose it.
Right.
But he asked me, he goes, if you lost everything, could you get back to where you are today? And I said, absolutely. There's not a doubt in my mind. It would be a lot of work, a lot of stress, but I could do it. Yeah, I could get back to where I'm at today, for sure.
And that right there is the difference between that 90 and 10% that you were referencing earlier, because a lot of people couldn't confront a change of that magnitude.
Yep.
Starting over, giving up the cars, giving up everything, and doing it again. That's a little too unsafe, a little too unpredictable of a territory.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what's a big mistake you say you've made where you lost? You mind sharing something like that?
Yeah. I'll share this with you, and this is a learning that, and I want it to be clear, man. Please don't cut this soundbite out, and then it's just the soundbite, right? But okay. what I've learned, because I'm grateful for the partners I've had. I've had really 4 main partners in business, probably 4 main partners in the businesses that I've built, and I've learned something from every one of those partners, and I'm grateful for what I've learned. I've learned a lot more from a couple of them. But I've also realized I don't want a business partner any longer. I don't need the capital, and I've just found that it slows. Let me be really clear though. I am absolutely fine and welcome investors and an advisor that maybe has an equity stake. But having 2 people or 3 people even as operating partners running the business together, and you all have significant equity in the business, but not equal equity. That movie ends the same way every single time, with, several people if not everybody being disappointed and frustrated and angry, and the partnerships end up dissolving and people get bought out and stuff. And that's what I've experienced. And I've talked to myriad entrepreneurs, and unless they just hit the lottery with their partner, it's usually how the movie ends. And I think we go into business with a partner or partners because there's safety in numbers. We can pool our capital. A lot of times you don't need to, but we feel we can pool our capital. We can pool our brains and our intellect, and we'll make better decisions together. And sometimes that's true. A lot of times that's not. And so I think the mistake I made was rushing into businesses at times with partners who I really didn't know extremely well. And I've never been like screwed over and somebody stole a bunch of money. I've been very fortunate. That's not happened to me. Just the daily grind of operating a business together. It's like you're in a marriage.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
With a lot more money and a lot more ego.
I think it's more than a marriage, in my opinion.
Yeah.
I've had, it's you with this person all day with your life savings and all. That's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
What would y'all, not to pry too deep, but what would y'all dispute about? Like, we don't want to hire this person, or we don't want to spend this much money on the marketing, or we don't want to, like, any area of disagreement?
Yeah, all of the above.
All of the above,
right?
okay.
We need to hire more people. No, we don't. These people don't have enough to do as it is. They're just complaining.
Right.
Because they're not being managed well, and you're not setting them up with KPIs so they can perform and they can congratulate them and high five them, or we should go all in here, or we should discuss this more. We can't move this fast. And I'm like, oh my God, let's go. We got to get moving. So it's just it comes down to, again, these aren't bad people. They are not bad people. This is just personalities.
Right.
Again, some of them may look at me. Probably they do look at me and think, he's an asshole at times. True. Absolutely true. Right. Absolutely true. Because business is stressful. Business takes money. Business takes time away from your family and all that. And so oftentimes your partners can see the worst in you. And we all can see the worst in each other because it comes out, because adversity doesn't build character. It reveals it. It doesn't build it. It reveals it. And I think if I could do it over, I may have been more choiceful with people I got into business with. And certainly, even if I didn't change that, I would change the operating structure where one person is running that particular business. The others are just advisors that 4 times a year, come to a board meeting and expect that their input is heard and acted upon. And if not, then that operating partner is replaced with either an outside person or another operating partner steps in. But to me, my biggest lesson is too many cooks in the kitchen and the food turns out terrible.
Yeah, that's interesting. It's funny because I agree with you. My companies I own 100%. I own a few with my wife, and she's a good partner. We got a good thing going. But I agree with you on, there's a reason Rome elected Caesar as the emperor, because a damn Senate can't freaking decide anything. They need one person making a decision. But you see like partnerships like Steve Jobs, Steve Wozniak, Charlie Munger, and Buffett, and like there's a lot of duos out there that do well. I don't know how they've got all their stuff structured. But
that whole, now Buffett and Munger, a little bit different, although Buffett was definitely the lead, but Munger was really just the perfect yin to his yang.
Yeah.
But like Jobs and Wozniak, Jobs was the guy.
Right.
Wozniak was the brain, but he was behind. Like they had very defined roles that Woz would not step over.
Sure.
Now Jobs would step over every line, but Woz would not, right? And that's why that worked.
But what about Gates and I forgot the other gentleman, but him and Gates came up together.
Yeah, Paul Allen. Yeah,
Paul Allen, yeah.
Again, same thing.
Same thing?
I think Allen was a little more forward, but that was Gates' company.
Yeah.
The fact that you couldn't think of his name off the top of your head, I know you know him, but you couldn't. That just showed like Gates. When you think of Microsoft, you think of Gates. Even though Paul Allen was a co-founder, but owns the he's a multi-billionaire and owns the
sure.
Portland Trailblazers and all that stuff. But it's Gates was the guy, and you have to have like one person that is running the ship. It's so clear to me. I think in retrospect that's so important.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. Cool. All right. Let me see. There's a few other things. There's one that says, this is also on your on the book's bullet points. The 4 key principle the 4 key financial principles. Is that a quick rundown, or is that?
Yeah, I'll just share with you that so the biggest thing on that is people think when they go into business, they have to be, financial experts, and that they have to, be able to read, balance sheet, a P&L, a cash flow statement, and chart of accounts and everything. That you don't. You should be able to, like, you're gonna be better prepared, and you'll be able to make, you can make sure that money's where it's supposed to be and it's not leaving when it shouldn't. But I really, in that, the focus of that chapter is, one, cash is king, queen, prince, and princess. It is everything. And businesses don't go out of business because they didn't make a profit. Profit is an accounting measure. Now, net income, if you're running a business that doesn't really accrue and you're using cash accounting, it'll be similar. But cash management and your cash flow statement, that's the health of your business. Do you have more cash this month than you had last month? And are you going to have more cash available next month than you had this month? So, you have to be able to see that on your cash flow statement. But what most people do is they outsource their books. I have somebody that does mine, but I have outsourced at times. But I have a full-time person here that handles it for my businesses. But before that, and I would get it and I would go right to the P&L. That's the first thing you open up is P&L. And you're like, oh, okay, I made, $48,000 this month in that business, or I lost $12,000. Well, not really. That's just when the expenses hit. You didn't really have cash outlays for this, so the cash didn't move, or you didn't collect. You recognize the revenue, but you didn't collect the cash yet. And so a P&L is a cash reporting. A tax reporting tool. It's how you pay your taxes, right? And that's why it can be manipulated so many ways, depending if you use cash accounting or accrual accounting. But it's the cash flow statement that really can't be faked. You can't fake a cash flow statement. You can fake a P&L. And a cash flow statement just speaks volumes. Now, another principle in there is...
Oh, I'm sorry. Hold on. Before I lose that,
please.
What do you mean by a cash flow statement? What information does it have that the profit and loss doesn't have?
Well, profit and loss, let's say you're doing accrual accounting, meaning, hey, when I buy inventory, I park it on my balance sheet, but I don't recognize it as an expense yet, because I can't, if I'm doing accrual accounting, I can't until I sell those products, and then I recognize the cost of good against it. So I bring those products that I've paid cash for, that are sitting on my balance sheet and sitting in a warehouse somewhere, but I haven't sold them yet. And only until I bring that, I sell that item, can I bring that cost of good to match it, to offset some of the revenue. And then that leaves me with, the net income, so to speak. But that's not what happened with the cash. The cash was floated 90 days ago to purchase this inventory that's sitting in a warehouse that we're paying rent on and storage costs. And whether we sell it or not that month, we've already spent that cash for all that inventory. And a cash flow statement is going to show you, because, you've heard this too, companies go broke, but they also grow broke. They're growing so fast that their supply chain, they have to get the goods in. There's a 16-week lead time, whatever, they're ordering from overseas. And they have to, because they're growing so fast, they can't afford enough inventory to fulfill the orders. And then it becomes a death spiral, and the company, ends up going down when they were actually growing, because they didn't have the financing. And that's why people go out and raise money, so they can they can keep up with their growth.
That's right.
But a cash flow statement is going to say, let's just use round numbers. In my bank account, my working capital account, I had $100,000 to start the month of May. I then had 2 payrolls. I then had rent. I then had, insurance costs and benefits costs for the employees. I had travel costs and other expenses and insurance costs, utilities costs. All those are outflows. And then I had revenue that came in for the sale of our products or our services, and any royalty streams or anything, IP rights or whatever, where you can monetize it, that revenue comes in. Well, at the end of the day, on a P&L, that could look 1,000 different ways depending on how you do your accounting. And again, I'm not saying that you should scam the government or do it. I'm just saying, once you choose an accounting method, you have to follow that and stay with that. But that could really radically change what the income statement looks like from month to month. Whereas a cash flow statement, I start with 100,000. I sold $200,000 worth of products or services. So theoretically, I should have $300,000 of cash now. But then I had $180,000 of payroll and cost of goods and insurance and, and rent and all that other stuff that goes out, and a one-time legal expense or whatever. And I spent 180 of it. Well, at the end of the month, I've got 120,000 of cash, which means the cash flow statement is going to show that the cash position improved by $20,000. Very simple example, and where Charlie Munger, you brought him up, Charlie Munger and Warren Buffett, that's how they bought companies. They bought them off their cash flow statements, not off their income statements. Sometimes they look at the balance sheet and see where value is tied up. That's one of the principles in there too, is you can have cash hiding in your balance sheet. So an example that I use is my own company, Rockbox Fitness, our boxing for fitness franchise. We had $500,000 worth of, about $400,000 worth of branded gloves and wraps and focus mitts and all these things that go with, that the franchisees buy and they resell. We had that in a warehouse. It was $400,000 of cash that was tied up. And what we ended up doing is got with a logistics company, sold that inventory to them at a discount, and then they fulfill the orders, and then we just get a small piece of that sale as compensation for use of our trademark, but they're carrying the cash burden of it. And that freed up, about $300,000 of cash back into the business. So it helped finance the growth of the business. And again, that's all in the cash statement. But Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger will tell you, in fact, Charlie Munger is famous and is quoted as saying, EBITDA equals bullshit earnings, quote unquote, right? And that's how companies are bought and sold is via EBITDA. It's just but EBITDA is not real money, and it's not really cash. You can get there somehow, kind of, but it's not really cash.
Well,
cash
for
is
our
cash.
audience, can you, I know that's the acronym, the earn, could you tell us what EBITDA stands for?
It's just, it's earnings before interest and taxes, and then depreciation and amortization.
Okay.
So those are all profit and loss categories that really don't show the real true picture of the business.
Right.
And so you look at your earnings before you pay interest and taxes, interest on your debt and taxes to the government, and then the depreciation and amortization, which is not real cost. You've already spent the money. You buy a truck for $50,000 or whatever, a service truck. And then let's say it's straight line depreciation, you probably accelerate. Let's say it's straight line and you do $10,000 a year for 5 years. Well, that $10,000 is going to come off your net income and lower your net income, but it actually was already cash that you'd spent. So your income's really higher than that. So EBITDA theoretically is going to show you that, without the accounting principles and accrual accounting, how did the business do?
Yeah.
And again, I will just go back to EBITDA is great. And again, that's how my companies have sold too. When I've sold my companies, it's always based off EBITDA because that's the norm. But when I buy a company, I will only look at cash flow, because you can't hide, there's an old saying, all these Instagram influencers and you can fake a Lambo, but you can't fake a jet. That's Grant Cardone's. and it's true. Like, you can fake an income statement, but you can't fake a cash flow statement unless you're Enron, unless you're just Enron and you're committing fraud.
Right.
And so cash is king, queen, prince and princess.
Yeah.
Talk about the balance sheet. Where do you have money hiding on your balance sheet that you can free up so you can utilize that cash? Because a lot of money just sits and hides in the balance sheet that you can get creative, with a third party or somebody else, or lending against that, however you want to do it, to free up some of that cash to operate your business and grow your business.
Gotcha. Yeah, I remember calling my accountant one time, this is years back, when I didn't completely understand a profit and loss. I mean, it looks obvious, like, okay, I made this and I spent this and blah, blah, blah. And it'd be like $50,000 at the end of the month. And I'm like, where the hell is this 50? I don't have $50,000. And I called my accountant. I'm like, what the hell am I missing here, man? Because I don't have this money. We're like running on fumes over here, but this thing shows I made 50. And so it's like, well, for example, the mortgage on the building, we could put interest, but the actual payment on the principal is not a deductible thing. So it doesn't appear on the profit and loss, but you spend it. So it goes back to your point. You need to see a cash flow statement, not the P&L sometimes, because it doesn't have everything.
Absolutely.
Now, let me, we got to wrap up here, man. I could talk with you forever, I feel. Let me ask you real quick, though. Who's your idols in the business world? Because you seem to have a pretty good working knowledge of some of the, more famous, successful leaders. Who do you look up to?
Great question. And I'll just preface it with, if your listeners are in business and they don't have a mentor, seek one out, even if you have to pay for it.
Yeah.
I don't mean a 21-year-old life coach. I mean like a real person who's been through the trenches and wants to give back. And maybe, they have a mastermind or a coaching program, and that's fine. You can pay for it. I didn't have great mentors in business, and I own that because I should have sought them out, but I'm just not that guy where, somebody took me under their wing and said, stick with me, kid, I'll show you the ropes. I just never had that, unfortunately. And I wish I did. And I want that for your listeners, because it would make the journey so much better and faster and more understandable. And when bad things happen, you would understand why and have answers for it. So to answer your question, I've since I didn't have a human being that stood up for that, I actually went out and found them through books, through biographies, through articles, through, watching lectures. I consume more business books than I care to admit, because those are my mentors.
Yeah.
And, Jeff Bezos, I read a book during COVID, in fact, that was like the period of Amazon from 2007 to 2019. And so not the founding early years, but not, after COVID, but I was reading it during COVID. And I learned so many things from that, where he talks about day one. It's always day one at Amazon, meaning, hey, if we have to make a decision, I don't care how much money we've spent or invest. If this were day one of Amazon, what would we do? What would the next move we would make right now if this were day one? What a great principle, because then you're not stuck in old thinking and broken patterns and all. You make the best decision for that. So that's just one example. What I try to do, and I've read Rockefeller's biography and Churchill's biography and Elon Musk and Steve Jobs, of course. And I try to read it like this was my mentor, and they were sharing with the biographer all of their knowledge to be shared with others. And I'm trying to glean that out. So to answer your question, I don't have one guy that I say, like that's the guy or that's the girl, but I do. My mentors have been an amalgamation of all these people that I've never met or never will meet. Maybe some of them aren't even alive anymore, that have this great wisdom that, thank goodness, somebody captured on paper in a book, or a lecture they gave was captured, or a speech they gave was captured. And again, if we go right back to the beginning of the podcast, I don't just take it. No, I write it down. I go back and review it, and then I change a behavior. And again, I'm so far from perfect, but I am proud that I will take something from a book, and there'll be 100 ideas in there, but I'll take 3, and I'll at least get real serious about implementing one in my business. And my team knows this. I fly out in 48 hours to go to another NLP conference. It's a small group, and it's going to be really intense for 4 days over the Memorial Day weekend. And they know, my group already just teased me in this last staff meeting. They're like, oh God, you're going to come back from that and you're going to have 50 ideas and we're going to have to check it out. Because they know me. Like, yeah, I don't just go and be, hey, that was cool. I come back and say, okay, this is what we're changing. And it's not flavor of the week. Like, we are permanently changing this. Because that's another thing that entrepreneurs do is, let's go left, let's go right, let's go left. No. Just, are we going to go left or right? We're going right. Okay, then we're going all in on going right. And we're going to stay that course until we learn a better way, or we're shown a better way, but we're not deviating, which gets back to taking action and just going for it.
That's a good point. Because so many times we'll go to a business conference or some sort of an enhancement presentation, and you'll ask somebody, what'd you think? You're like, that was great. Good. It's good information. It's like, okay, so what are you going to change with it? How are you going to use that information? They don't know. So they don't take it in to actually improve. It's like somehow they're going to be blessed with all the positive energy without action alone, or without any action. It's like, but I like that. Like, grab a few core concepts and go for broke on those.
Yeah,
that's good advice.
If nothing changes, nothing changes.
Nothing changes.
So
That's right.
You want something different in your life, then you're going to have to change.
Yeah. Well, listen, man, I think I could talk with you another hour. I've got to wrap it up, but I greatly appreciate your time and your experience and your knowledge and, all that you've accomplished. It's tremendous. Congratulations to you.
Well, thank you. And it's been my pleasure. I love to help entrepreneurs. If any of your listeners want to connect with me or follow me, I'm on all the socials at Real Roger Martin, ROGER, no D, just ROGER Martin, but Real Roger Martin, and they can go find me on LinkedIn as well. If they want the book, again, it's on Amazon, An Insider's Guide to Business. All the proceeds, every red cent goes to charity. So I appreciate being able to share anything with your listeners that may help them.
Absolutely, man. We appreciate it again. Do you have a website?
Yep, they could go to realrogermartin.com, or they could go to like our brands. My umbrella is called Thrive More Brands, and we have a company that's I'm really proud of called Thrive More Autopilot that helps small and mid-size brick and mortar businesses generate more leads, more prospects, but then also we work those prospects for the business. Like we call, text, email, hunt them down to their home, whatever we have to do to get them to schedule their first meeting, their first appointment, their first, store visit, so that we can help that small business grow. And that's called Thrive More Autopilot. And they can see that at thrivemore.ai. But if they go to thrivemoorebrands.com, that has like a lot of my companies listed and the book's available, I think, on there, or at least the link is, and all my socials and stuff.
Cool. All right. Well, listen, Roger, thank you again. Congrats to all you've done. All right. And everybody, I hope you've enjoyed this. If you have any comments or any opinion on anything we've mentioned, you want to contribute to the topic, please leave us a comment below. Let's spread that knowledge with everybody else. Also, if you will share this video with your friends and give us a like. And we hope to see you on the next Hines on Air.
This program is being sponsored by Law Offices of Matthew C. Hines. The Law Offices of Matthew C. Hines helped all individuals who have been involved in a car accident, who have been injured at work, or have been arrested or given tickets. We make sure your rights are protected and that you receive all the benefits allowed under the law. Visit us at www.hineslaw.org, hineslaw.org.
Hines on Air is for you. Remember to subscribe, like, and leave a review whenever you listen to podcasts. Your support helps us reach more people and continue sharing these incredible stories.